office hours. We're going to wait a few minutes here for people to join in. Hey, Ricky. I'm just hanging out for a minute, letting everybody join. Hey, Diana. I'm going to wait just a couple minutes here for everybody to join before we get started. Okay. I'm going to wait till 2:32. Get started at 2:32. Hey, Renee. We're just waiting a couple minutes to let people join before we get started. Thanks for joining, Jennifer. I'll wait a couple more minutes. There's one more minute here. We'll get started at 2:32. Hey, Rowan. All right, it's 2:32. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining me today. This is ProLine Office Hours, and today I'm going to be going over our new launch. We just launched this yesterday. We made a pretty substantial improvement or a group of improvements on our quoting system. And so I'm going to go over those. Specifically, we launched instant quote previews, so you don't have to wait around for the quote to generate anymore. We have multi-signatures now. We have more cover page options. And we also added the ability to embed videos into your quotes as well, which is really cool. So I'm going to be going over all of that today. And then after I've gone through that, then I'll open it up for questions. If you guys have questions about those features or anything else regarding ProLine, I'm here to answer those questions. So go ahead and get your questions ready for that point while I'm going through that new feature. Okay. So I'm going to share ProLine here, get us in here. Let me just make sure this is recording. Yep. Okay. So we're going to start and actually go look at the cover pages first. So I'm going to go into our company settings and then go to quotes. And then we have our quote templates here. And so I can go into this quote template that I have right here. I'll go to the cover page. And we now have a bunch of different options here for our cover pages. So we can, this was the original design of our cover pages in ProLine. We just had one design originally, but now we have all of these different options to choose from. One of my favorites is this one right here. It's got like this cool kind of angled design going on. Once you've selected it, you're probably going to want to come customize some of the colors. So that's pretty easy to do here. So we'll just kind of play around with this until we get a good combination that we like how those blues complement each other. And then I'm going to want the text to be white since it's on that blue background. So that'll clean that up a bit. And so now we have that cover page selected, and now we're going to save and close this. Now all quotes that are made with this, all the quotes that are made with this template will now have that cover page. So we'll go ahead and create a template or a quote here. We're going to use that quote template. And so now if we go to our cover page, that is queued up and good to go there. All right. So we also, while we're in here, I'll go ahead and open this up. We also have the ability now to embed video, YouTube and Vimeo videos into ProLine. So the way this works is if I want to embed a video, I'd copy this tag right here, this YouTube tag. We only support YouTube and Vimeo. It is different tags for each one. So I'm going to put this right here in the middle. Now, it does require you to put in the ID from the platform. So I'm going to go to YouTube. Actually, let's YouTube ProLine. Should bring, here we go. So I'm going to grab this guy right here. So the easiest thing is just going to be to open this up.
Stop smashing.
And then the ID is just going to be, I believe it's this right here. It might be here. Okay, this is the ID. Is that the same thing? Yeah, it is the same thing. Okay, so it's going to be after this little, the V after the equal sign here. That's going to be the ID. And then it's going to end before the and symbol. So it's going to be that right there. You can also get it in the share URL here. It's just going to be this part right here up into the question mark. So I'm going to copy this, go back to ProLine. I'm going to put that ID in just like that. And then now we're going to close that. We're going to open this. Now it does still take a few moments for ProLine to generate the quote, but as you can see, this is way faster than it was before with the PDFs. With the PDFs, it took about 30 seconds to generate a PDF. We do still generate a PDF version. So you're going to see here in the upper right-hand corner, it's going to say generating PDF. And then once that finishes, it will allow downloading of the PDF. And then everything else regarding PDF still works. Like for example, how you can have your PDFs attached when you send your quote. You can have it as an attachment on the email or when the quote is signed. All that still works through the PDF version. But we now have this live version that loads very quickly. And also, depending on what you change on the quote, even sometimes when you make changes, sometimes it will just still load instantly when you click into the quote. So that's just going to be a nice quality of life to save you a little time. And you can see here that one of the benefits of this is that we can now put videos in. So this video is now embedded into the quote. So you can send quotes, and this is going to show up perfectly on both desktop and on mobile devices. And your customers can now view their quote and watch a video. You can embed a video about your company or about your process right into the quote, and it's ready to go. On the PDF version, so I'm going to download the PDF version. It's just going to show this. So we're kind of playing around with how we might do that differently and like trying to have like a link there or something like that. We haven't really figured out the best way to approach that on the PDF version. The kind of the thought process that we have is that most people are going to use this live version because this live version is not only what you see, but it's also what gets sent to your customer. So when they're loading it on their end, they're going to get this version and be able to play the video and all of that. And by the way, the only reason that it's like that in the PDFs is PDFs do not support videos. So that's a hard limitation of PDFs that can't really be overcome. So yeah, this is live quotes in ProLine. And so one of the other benefits here is that you now actually can have buttons. So we can actually have a sign now button. So in addition to the sign now at the top of ProLine, it has this on the actual signature page as well, which is kind of cool. So they can click sign. Now you'll also notice here that we have two signers, and that's because we have multi-signing now inside ProLine. I'll show you how that gets set up. So when you're setting up your quote, you would go into the quote settings and then signing requests, and you're going to add a primary signer here. This is by default going to be the contact that is associated, the main contact of the project. So just like previously, that's who the quote by default gets sent to. It's the same thing here. This is now the person that's going to receive this quote, and you're just creating this on the quote itself before you go to the send area. And so we can have this here, and you can see here that there's a tag that says contact, and that's because you can actually have signers that are not contacts. So we can have both multiple contacts that are signing, for example, like a husband and a wife, or maybe like a CEO and a VP in like a commercial setting. You can have both that, but you can also do counter signing. So you can set up your quotes so that maybe the owner of your company is countersigning every quote, or the sales rep countersigns every quote. So we now have that ability inside of ProLine for countersigning of your documents, which is really cool. So there's just real easy controls here around this, being able to add and remove new contacts and users. And then I'm going to go back in here. So if you make changes, it does take that second just to load again, but still way faster. So now when you go to sign, so there's a primary signer, and that's important. There's that first person in the list. That's the primary signer. That's the person that's going to choose the options and upgrade and add-ons and all that on the quote. So this primary signer here is who's going to choose what is actually being opted in for on the quote. And so we'll sign this. And so we'll hit save. And so now the quote has been signed by the primary signer, but the quote is not completely signed yet. And so in this scenario, it's still in process. It's been signed by the primary signer, but not the secondary signer. And so now the secondary signer can come in here and complete it. Now you'll notice the secondary signer does not have the ability to change what the primary signer has already chosen for this quote. So it is now, the quote has been made static. And this is just that second person either countersigning or backing up that first signature. One other thing, I don't remember if this was visible before, but we now have this nice little certificate here at the bottom that gives like the IP address and the device and all of that. Just a little bit of extra layer for legality, just to kind of back up that digital signature. We actually have more information too on the back end if it's needed, if it ever comes up. But we're actually putting that visible on the quote as well now. So once the second signer has signed, and just to be clear, this multi-signature functionality is not in no way required. So if you want to just have a single signer, which is what everyone's doing right now in ProLine, you can continue to do that, and it will work basically the same way it's worked up to this point. But you just now have the option of adding additional signers. So one thing you'll notice is when the quote is signed, it does have to generate the PDF. We do lock it into the PDF form once it is signed. So once the quote is signed, then it's locked into this PDF. That way it's, nothing can possibly change on it. That's one thing that we kind of figured out was with the live quote approach, some things are going to then update in real time. Like if you change your financing settings, that might update on the live quote. But we want to make sure once it gets to the PDF version that's signed, there's no possible way of something changing. So once it is signed, then you're going to see the PDF version only. And you'll see here we have, again, those nice certificates and signatures and all that is good to go. So that is multi-signing. The only other thing in regards to multi-signing that's important is that now if we go to that quote template, we have a few more options here down in like the send quote actions. Now you have a primary signer and primary signer templates. This is the messages that get sent when you send the quote. But then secondary signer, you have a separate set of templates that's specifically for the secondary signers. So that's another kind of layer. We've already pre-populated this into every existing quote template, but this is just another thing to note, is that those things can be separate. So the message that the primary signer is getting, where they're going to have to choose what they want for the options and all that, they're just getting a different message than the secondary signer is getting. Another kind of cool thing here. So okay, actually, more in send quote here. We do have a quote expiration. I totally forgot about that feature. We launched that with this launch as well. So you can now set an expiration in days here on the quote template. So you can say all quotes sent with this quote template expire in 30 days. After 30 days, the customer will not be able to access the quote. They'll just get a message saying, hey, your quote has expired. Please, request a new quote. And so if you're worried about your pricing, if quotes just floating out there, you now have that control on the quote template level to set an expiration date for all quotes made with the template. Then so that pretty much covers the send quote actions. The sign quote actions have changed slightly. So not only do we have a signed quote stage, the signed quote stage is when something has been fully signed by all parties. Or if you only have one signer, then when that one signer signs, the signed quote stage, that's where the project will get moved to. But we also have a partially signed quote stage as well. And the partially signed quote stage is where the project gets moved to after the primary signer has signed, but there are still secondary signers that need to sign. So this is super useful if you are needing to countersign quotes internally. So like maybe your owner, maybe you're doing government contracts or something where countersigning is required. And then what you can do is you can say partially signed quote stage, set that to be a stage in your system, like awaiting countersign or something like that in your ProLine in one of your pipelines. And then that can also trigger a task that gets assigned to the person that's supposed to sign it. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do there to make it super easy for your owner to go in periodically and just countersign everything that's currently pending. And then once it's countersigned, then it will pop over to the signed quote stage. So yeah, that's really useful, but not necessary. So this is now extra. This signed quote stage is what we had before, and that will still work as it has before if you're only dealing with one signer. I don't think I've covered this before, so this is not part of this launch, but it was a few months ago, but we added this auto send deposit invoice. So you can choose an invoice template to automatically send that will get pre-populated with the invoice value. And you'll only be able to select ones that use the deposits calculation mode. And as I mentioned before, this attached PDF copy of signed quote, this will continue to attach that PDF version of the quote into your emails. So if you have that selected, it will continue to send, to wait for that PDF to generate before sending. And one other thing to note here, so this is the only thing for like single signers that's going to change a little bit with how quotes get sent, is that the controls on who a quote gets sent to are now here in this signing request area. So what this changes is if you're used to being able to go into ProLine, we'll generate a new quote here. If you're used to being able to go and preview the quote and then send it to anyone and change who you're sending it to, that's no longer going to be an option, unfortunately, because so we used to allow you can just click an X here and change who the recipient was. That now has to be done inside the quote because we're pre-setting up so much information based on who the signer is going to be now with the multi-signature. So and you can see here, it will give you this little warning, or not really warning, but just alert down at the bottom if you have additional signers. You can still edit the messages that get sent to the primary signer, but the secondary signers all get those templates that are in those templated messages in the template. You can't edit those before they send. So those are just set. But that's like the biggest sort of change, where if you were used to being able to send this to multiple people, which would be, I imagine not many people were doing that, but if you were, unfortunately, you'll have to make adjustments. But because we have the multi-signature, you might not even need that, because maybe one of our requests has been the ability to send quotes and orders and invoices to multiple people. Now, we haven't done anything on the order and invoice side yet, but now for quotes, you can send it to multiple people because we have the multiple signature approach. So assuming that you do want signatures from all of them, you can add additional signers now that are all going to get to view the quote and sign off on it. And yeah, so that pretty much covers it. I'm gonna open it up now for questions. And I think there was already a couple questions. I gotta find, here we go. Okay, so I saw oh, Jennifer said that's a nice new feature. Yes, yeah, it's exciting. So you guys can, I'm monitoring both. There's a Q&A section and there's a chat. Either one's fine. So looks like Ricky just said in the chat, can you go back to the quote and show the banners with the shingle samples? It's a photo of a home, then the shingle swatch next to it. Let me go look at that. Show the banners with the shingle. Oh, yeah. Yep. Let me show you that. So just move all this stuff out of the way. So what you're looking at there is the banner images that are on all pages. So all pages in ProLine, or pretty much all quote pages except the cover page and custom pages, I think. Maybe the signature page. No, signature page can have it as well. Almost all pages can have these banner pages added to them. So that's what you're seeing there. So this was created outside of ProLine, and you can create these in Canva. I believe these might actually be like screenshots from a provider. I can't remember. This might be from like GAF or something. But so you can actually screenshot something from your supplier or from your manufacturer if you prefer, and you can put those images in, or you could build something in Canva and then take those images and put them in here. Another thing that I've seen, so some people will kind of do this and have the images be different for each option. But another cool thing I've seen is some people kind of want to create a consistent theme throughout their quote. So they'll have like maybe a thinner banner that has their brand colors, their logo in it, and it will just go at the top of every single page. And it will just be consistent throughout their entire quote. So that's another cool way of using that page there. You can, and also FYI, you can control this on both the quote template level and the quote itself. So you can change it on the quote level, but you can set it to be a default on your quote template. All right. Renee asked, can you add an amendment to the finalized PDF contract? Any amendments would have to get sent as a separate quote. So you could definitely create a quote template that has an amendment. It's maybe just a text page that just says amendment. And then, this is an amendment to the previously signed quote. That's the reason, part of the reason we offer the ability to have unlimited quotes within a project is for change orders, for amendments, for anything else that you might want to do. You can have them be separate quotes. We use the word quote very loosely. Like quotes in ProLine are really just legal signable documents is really what you're getting with our quotes. They just also contain a lot of quoting functionality. So you can absolutely have a quote template that basically just has a text page or just has an options page with like a line item. For example, if you need to amend it because you're adding some OSB board, aka a change order, you can have a page that basically is just like 3 pieces of OSB board with, it says and gives the legal text that would go along with that, and sign it and have that. You don't have to have you could get a secondary signature on it if you wanted to, or you could also not get you can actually send the documents and just get approval on them, a verbal approval. So there's lots of different ways. We don't require you to collect a signature on these quotes unless you add that signature page in. So, yeah, kind of long answer to your question, but yes, there's like multiple ways to do it. If you just talk to our support, they'll walk you through setting up anything that you need in the form of a quote template. John Starry asks, is there a way to include clickable hyperlinks on custom PDFs we upload? He also says my banner pages are way prettier than those. I'm sure they are, John. So not at this time. So right now I believe we're still, when you upload a PDF before, and I don't know if we'll ever change this, for sizing, to optimize like load time and sizing, we turn that PDF into images. And so we don't actually embed PDFs inside of ProLine quotes. We only embed images. So if you upload a PDF, we're just converting it to images. So because of that, any links in those PDFs would become static and unclickable. You can certainly add links inside of our quote, our text pages, but on PDFs that you upload, the answer to that in the short run is no. Though if you add that idea to the idea page, I could see that getting some traction and we could look into it. It might be that we can do something like if you upload a PDF that's smaller than a certain size, then it remains a PDF. And only if you try to upload a monster PDF, which happens, some of these PDFs that may look very simple, but because of just bad tech that's generating them, they can be like 100 megabytes, which is just going to massively slow down your quote. So that's what we're trying to avoid. So we might be able to add some conditions in there. I would just add it to the ideas page and we'll take a look at it. And by the way, for everyone watching, for ideas, we have the ideas and roadmap. I just always like to bring this up because a lot of people still don't know this is here. So literally in the slide out menu here, if you go to ideas and roadmap, we have an entire like separate platform here that's just for everyone's ideas. And we spend a lot of time, like I personally look over every single idea that comes through here and I'll clean it up, or in some cases I do have to reject it, but if I'm rejecting it, I'm going to give you a detailed reason why, and usually it's because it already exists in some form. So this is where we basically pull new ideas for new features, is from this page. So I don't think we've moved over the ones like the features I'm talking about today, but they're in here. And so we'll move them over. Just because something gets a lot of votes doesn't necessarily mean we're going to build it right away, just because it can be, we have to balance out like how difficult something is to build with how many votes it gets. But the more votes something gets, the more we're going to be talking and thinking about it. So just kind of a side note here. All right. Rowan asks, I'm sure you've gone over this before, but how do you add vendor tax? Yep, absolutely. I can go over that real quick. So vendor tax is added, fortunately, you don't really have to mess with it very much once it's set up, but there was no like easy way for us to do this. The way that it's set up is actually on the locations tab. So locations is where you'll manage your vendor taxes. The reason we have it that way is because vendor taxes tend to change from location to location because of different taxes in different counties or states or boroughs or whatever you have in your area of the country. And so you can add any number of, and sales tax is pretty much what these get used for. You can also add service taxes as well. So if you have like a state service tax, you can add that. But sales tax is what's going to be used the most. Then underneath each location, and if you only have one location, then this will just get applied to your one location. But you would add your service taxes and vendor taxes to your locations. And then that way, if you do have more than one location, and locations can be relatively close together, they're really just service areas. Like anywhere that you have, you could, even with one office, have multiple locations in ProLine. We don't charge for these or anything like that. They're just used for the organization. But most commonly it's if you have like more than one GMB location is where you're going to want to use these locations. But lots of different flexibilities there. So you assign it to the location. Then when you create a quote with or under a project that is in that location, ProLine automatically adds all those taxes to it. So in most cases, all the taxes will be good to go right out of the box. I didn't need to create a new quote here. That's fine. Okay, so now I will go look in here, quote settings. So vendor tax, you can see Atlanta sales tax was already added by default. And then where is the service tax? I always forget. It's a little bit. Hold on a second. Okay, so the sales vendor, so there's vendor tax, and then where is the service tax? I think the service tax might be, oh, yes. Okay, service tax. So service tax has to be applied to the project as a whole. So because of that, it's controlled here on the budget tab. Please ignore that. Okay. So the service tax is controlled here. I believe there is also a way to control it from inside the budget planner, if I remember. Yes, yeah. So you can control it here inside the budget planner as well. So there's multiple ways to get to it, but in most cases, if you have this set up in the ideal way using your locations, then you're not really having to mess with it. It's going to get automatically applied. To the vendor taxes will get applied to your each quote, and the service tax gets applied to the project. All right. So that was our last question in the chat. Let me just make sure there wasn't anything. How do I go? How do I get back to Zoom? Here we go. Okay. Just gonna make sure there's nothing in the Q&A area. Nope. Okay, cool. So let me hang out for another 60 seconds here in case there's any other questions. Otherwise, we're gonna wrap it up there. So I'm gonna hang out till 3:02 and see if anybody else has any. Oh, 3:03 just turned to 3:02. So I'll hang out till 3:03. If anyone else has any other questions, put that in the chat. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up there. Jennifer says the options for the taxes is really great. I appreciate that, Jennifer. We put a lot of thought and effort into that. So hopefully that helps you guys. It gets the taxes. The taxes is insanely complicated to get all that to work correctly. So I really appreciate that. I'll pass that along to Oliver that built that system. Right. Any last second questions? I'll kind of while we're hanging out here. The next big things that are going to get worked on. So tonight, actually, we're adding in project page filtering. So there'll be more filtering options on the project page inside of ProLine, which is going to be useful. So it'll start out just on, so you'll have a filters button here where it says locations. Locations is one of the filters, but there will be a number of different filter options. That's just going to be on desktop to start, but we'll add it to mobile later. And then the other thing that we're kind of jumping into is we're going to be building out our customer dashboard here. So this project folder share URL was kind of a very lightweight customer dashboard. That is going to get moved. It's probably going to show up here instead. And that's going to get built out where it's going to show quotes and events and all kinds of stuff. And then also two-way email syncing has been on our list for probably 3 years now. And so we're finally getting around to working on that. So two-way email syncing, we're specifically syncing back replies outside of ProLine. They're really trying to get me to join in this. So I'm going to run. But thanks everybody for joining, and I'll see everybody next week. Next week is going to be a rundown of all the features that we did in ProLine this year. So that's going to be a long one. So that's going to probably be like an hour plus. There won't really be a time for a lot of Q&A. It's going to be mostly just like this feature, this feature, this feature. And so we're going to run through and just do an overview, and that's going to go out on YouTube, basically everything we got done in 2024 on the dev side, as far as improvements go in ProLine. So I'll see everybody for that in